The economy in the United States is somewhat of a question, but we are seeing new all time highs from foreign investors. Is it a sign that they are very confident in what Donald Trump has to do? And what does this mean about the last administration when we saw some scary things coming off with major sell offs not too long ago? So, we're going to dive into all of this and what this potentially means for the future of the economy of the United States, at least based on some of the foreign investment. But first, let's dive into this new all time high that we literally just saw today. I mean, I'm as shocked as you all as we're coming to you guys live here early today that we are seeing all time highs that foreign U.S. holdings or foreign holdings of U.S. treasuries jumped $80 billion in 1 month to a record 9.13 trillion. And as you can see, there was a big sell-off, and through the Biden administration outside of, 2020, like the last 2 years, it was basically even. And US treasuries since Donald Trump has come into office have been skyrocketing in flight, where Japan, we'll get to them later, added a bunch of US debt. The UK also added a bunch, and China was unchanged. Unchanged, excuse me. Now, it's very interesting when you look at the numbers here and you look at some of the past as to why we are seeing some things like this happen in the present. I mentioned Japan at the very beginning. Well, Japan sold off a bunch of the US treasuries last year. I don't know if you guys remember, in August, we saw essentially a giant explosion of the market because Japan decided to raise interest rates by 25 basis points. Now, a big reason why this happened was not because Japan was, all right, anti-United States, was because they are the biggest holder in US treasuries. So when the US, treasuries start getting sold off by the biggest dog, everybody starts to peak up a little bit. And there was this giant Japanese carry trade, which, for those of you who don't know, what the carry trade was essentially the yen carry trade, which was essentially, people were trading back and forth from the dollar to the Japanese yen and finding this little bit of arbitrage. So there's not a lot of arbitrage opportunities in the market, but in Japan, this was a huge one, right? So it's given there's going to be volatilities on the way down. It means sharp price drops in on the way down. But that's the whole part of the process of trying to grow the wealth, right? So the Japanese yen carry trade, it was an index key stock that's been marketing Japan in 1987, saw a 12% drop in 1 day. So Japan's close proximity to the United States just essentially made that crash the United States market. And we saw stuff that we hadn't seen ever, really. Now, on top of it, U.S. government agencies like trusts, like Social Security, U.S. domestic investors, mutual fund banks, pension funds, all these guys hold U.S. treasuries, right? But what's interesting is the amount of foreign investment coming in is absolutely just keeps on going up. And it's all private foreign treasuries coming in. So the foreign appetite for U.S. treasuries remains very strong. So they all have faith in the United States government, even though we see things like this. The federal government has borrowed trillions, and it owes a bunch of money in that debt. Now, on top of it, you guys see this foreign debt clock, or this U.S. debt clock that I love to show all the time. We're past $37 trillion worth of debt. And so there has to be some reason why these foreign entities now all of a sudden feel very confident in the United States economy, so much so that they're willing to invest heavily into the U.S. economy. Now, I think it's because of what they've already been seeing so far from this current admin. Now, the current administration has seen a lot of positives, but of course, it's also seen some negatives. But there's been a running list of new U.S. investment that's been going on. It's last updated 2 weeks ago almost. Right? So in Apple, we had 600 billion investment in there. Stargate, Nvidia, Microton, IBM, Taiwan Semiconductors, Johnson and Johnson. All of these companies are now, adding to their investments in the United States. And not only that, they keep adding. And on top of it, we had the UAE announced a $20 billion investment. France, we have some other countries now coming in. And I mean, look at this. This list just keeps going on and on and on of the amount of now investment coming into the United States. And Donald Trump's only been off for 8 months, right? So the UAE foreign investments, right, committed 1.4 trillion over the next decade. Qatar, 1.2 trillion. Japan, 1 trillion. Saudi Arabia, South Korea, Bahrain, Taiwan. All of these guys are now increasing their investments in the United States as well. So these foreign entities that are now buying up U.S. treasuries don't feel like it's as much of a risk with the dollar potentially spiraling out of control and a lot of various factors here because of what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of foreign investment, foreign aid come in. And they are drastically looking at this and saying, hey, you know what? The U.S. investment looks like it's going to pay off. We're seeing a lot of positive trends in this direction. And for the U.S. economy, where you guys know on this channel that I've been shouting from my lungs about how bad the housing market is and how a lot of things are poor domestically, but we're seeing a lot of positives in the outside perception of the United States. And even with that, right, we have an 87% chance that we're going to cut interest rates in like 3 weeks, basically 3 weeks and a couple hours from today. So as we start to see this, right, I mean, it seems to be pretty steady. Yesterday it was 87.8. Today it's 87.2. But a week ago it was 82. And 1 month ago it was 61. So we're seeing like a general trend in the direction that we're going to cut interest rates. Look, I don't necessarily think this is a positive because, we still see the Dixie at 98.4. So I firmly believe that we're still not out of the wraps just yet, and that we need to be looking at the overall strength of the dollar, the U.S. looking at that and kind of keeping a close eye on how we keep doing comparatively. And then on top of that, I think, we start looking at the overall market. Hey, you know what? If we're starting to cut this 6,470s or, the S&P 500, I mean, look at this big green candle we got this morning. I know that was from the other day. Excuse me, but we're still getting these green candles coming in this morning. And we're seeing just a rapid raise up. And I think it's interesting that, when we're seeing the UK kind of be openly adversarial against the United States, Japan has always been our ally, but we're seeing the most investments that we've seen in years come in within this past month. So they start to think that there's a rally. And, the Japanese markets, the UK markets, they see this, right? They want to get in June. They've seen Trump essentially screaming from his lungs that we're going to cut interest rates. We're going to cut interest rates. Fire Powell, fire Elisa Cook, fire all these people, right? You fire these people and then, hey, you know what? We're going to potentially start to see, where these foreign investments are coming from or how positive of an impact can this be. And make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button. I see what we got McLovin in the chat. What is going on, McLovin? Make sure you guys are hitting those bell notifications so you guys can join McLovin in the chat here, because I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on all of this. Because, I mean, the general perception, at least from what I see online and in the comments, are, it's a mixed bag. I think a lot of people are still feeling the pain, and a lot of people are not super happy with the job that Trump is doing. Now, like I said, there's a lot of different, investments that we've seen come in. And I think this is going to be a positive here going forward. I don't think that this is going to be a negative per se. I think we're going to start to see some things pump here, right? So as things start to pump, we start to see these things go crazy. I mean, it's just a matter of time before we start to see like a blow off the top. I mean, we're seeing a lot of, you know, people looking around here saying, hey, you know what? There's definitely some sort of US Treasury instances going around here. So I think that, we're going to start to see how these foreign aides are looking at the investments. And it's not just the United States market that's going to be bullish. I think everybody's going to start to be bullish on the US. And this is just a sign of for more of what's to come. So make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button. Thank you guys all for helping me get to that 300 mark. Let's help me get to 500 and then 1,000 ASAP like Rocky, so we can get this thing monetized and, have you guys more active in the chat as well. I would love to see you guys all here. So thank you guys all so much for joining, and I will catch you guys all at the next one.